Thank you, Kathy. On behalf of the Alliance for Change, I want to say that there is growing concern that the next general and regional elections will once again dissolve into public unrest unless improved systems are implemented at GCOM. Assurances by the Ghana Elections Commission that there are quote unquote safeguards to prevent multiple voting, voter impersonation, and other forms of quote unquote skullduggery, the term they used, appear empty in light of what transpired in 2020. There are facts that the Commission seem not to be addressing. Fact one, votes were cast in the name of deceased persons. Fact two, immigration records revealed that votes were cast in the name of persons who were out of the jurisdiction on polling day. Fact three, the recount showed that pertinent documents were not placed in ballot boxes as required at the end of polls. These alone should have informed GCOP that the electoral system is weak and needs a revamp. Instead, the Commission continues to issue press releases on a regular basis. When was the last time the Commission held a community public education meeting or a session to educate first-time voters? When was the last press conference? GCOM will not be allowed to hide behind press releases and use the law as a cop-out to avoid addressing the concerns of the electorate. From 2021 to 2024, the Ghana Elections Commission received some $16.7 billion. In 2021, the budget for GCOM was $4 billion. 22, 4.1 billion, 23, 5.2 billion, and in 2024, 3.5 billion. What did the electorate receive for that 16.7 billion? A local government election in 2023, a feasibility study that the Commission is studying, and which has not been shared with the electorate. Umpteen press releases, and nothing to suggest that the elections will see an improved system. This is GCOM's $16.7 billion rabbit hole that will take this country into unrest unless system weaknesses are addressed. The Alliance for Change acknowledges the limitations of existing laws, including legislation on removing names from the official list of electors and on the use of biometrics. However, 4 years after the unrest of the post-2020 polls, the Elections Commission has failed to offer any recommendation to the public on legislative amendments that would build public confidence in the polls. At present, public confidence is at its lowest, with many young and first-time voters questioning whether it makes sense to stand in line in rain or sun to vote. At the end of the day, it is the Elections Commission that is responsible for the conduct of the polls, and the failed system of 2020 will not suffice in 2025 or whenever the next elections is held, if sooner. GCOM should not have to be reminded of the EU's recommendation in its final report on the 2020 polls that, and I quote, the register of electors be updated well ahead of the next elections. And the same EU 2023 follow-up report that, and I quote again, the list remains problematic. Or of CARICOM's 2020 suggestion that, and I quote, the cleaning of the list should be the minimum condition for the 2025 elections. GCOM, the clock is ticking. The nation is watching and waiting. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Beverly. And we would like at this stage to ask Dr. Vince Adams, who is appearing virtually, to go ahead with his statement on the safe production limits, or rather, I should say, unsafe production limits. Go right ahead,
Yeah,
Dr. Adams.
yeah, you hear me?
We're hearing you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, good, good. You know, there are lots of talk about that emerged over the last week, but of course time wouldn't permit. So we'll just briefly address what you just said, Kathy, and one other item, which is that came up I think it was yesterday, which is kind of it raised lots of questions. The treatment facility at Coverdale. And of course, for full disclosure, I have deep roots in Sudak, which is right next door to Coverdale. But this project raises many jaw-dropping questions. First of all, who is this Professional Waste Solutions Inc.? You know, I tried looking on the webpage, but there's little information, seemingly to be hurried. As a matter of fact, the webpage seems to have been hurriedly set up with empty photo blocks. And the only two persons who registered under this company, which was, by the way, apparently was set up last year, CEO Mahendra G2 or J2, and which is a timber guy. He had, I guess he was into forestry and timber as the CEO, and actually J2, who's the general manager. Where is the technical expertise? How could the government sign an agreement with a company that shows no capability to carry out such a high risk, hazardous, and technical mission without ensuring that the company's technical capability to protect the health, safety, and environment are there? Trust me, this is no timber cutting operation. This is a high-tech, dangerous stuff. This is high-tech, dangerous stuff with dangerous chemicals at very high temperature, over 600 degrees chemicals. At one time in my career, I managed a waste management complex, including a one-of-a-kind incinerator operation, and we required staff of high-powered engineers, including PhDs in chemical engineering, safety, environment, and industrial hygiene specialists. There's no indication of permit applications, EIA, etc. But the facility is already built. I mean, that is just crazy stuff. There's no indication that the residents were even engaged. Um, and then the only thing you see, well, this is cutting edge, non-incinerator technology to process waste oil and from the oil and gas industry. Now, I've never seen anybody who says that it's a non-something. It says it's a non-incinerator technology. Well, what is the technology? I think I can guess what it is. I don't know if they know what it is. The only other the temperature treatment facility is it's something called pyrolysis. So I suspect that that's what they're talking about. Then they talk about this slag, and you can tell that they do not know what they're talking about, which is the byproduct to recycle for use in block making. Do they really have any clue how to do this, such as doing leachability tests before you can dispose of it? Where will it be disposed of? They're saying to recycle it into bricks. Do they know the waste characteristic of the raw waste, the slag, the air and water emission before designing and building the treatment facility? It looks as if they've already been given the green light with this agreement. I think it's a very serious pattern that must be nipped in the bud by the people before it becomes irreversible, as experienced in Eastern Europe, where there were relaxed regulations, and even the U.S. not make even within the U.S. Of some kind, so that we wouldn't make the same mistakes. So we must start on the right foot, or there will be dire consequences later. And as many may recall, you know, when the coalition was in office, we did not permit a facility from Texas that wanted to put a chemical plant in Eccles. And we stopped it, but we did not just stop the company. We worked with the company to find a different location for the chemicals that they were bringing in, which that never came into the country for the oil industry. We even sent three or four staff members up to Houston to spend like an entire week with them to understand the chemical before they could bring it together. So it's a different way of managing between the coalition and what is taking place here right now. Quickly, let me go to Mr. Vikram Bharat. And he's been making some statement that it just boggles the mind as to how someone could exhibit such an aptitude, immaturity, dishonesty, lack of intellectual curiosity, and such a don't care a damn attitude about the people. How could he be put in charge of the most consequential sectors of the nation as it relates to our economy, health, safety, and the environment? It would be laughable had it not been so serious and consequential to the country. This guy is either a blatant liar, completely inept and don't care to learn, or suffering from grandiose delusions, or he just don't care and take us all for fools, knowing that there is no accountability for him. He goes on, he says, I haven't looked at his press conference, but just from reading what he says, it's just a litany of gross foolishness and dishonesty. He now says the Petroleum Commission will slow down the oil and gas sector. He says that people from the petroleum unit in the ministry will be put on the commission if there's ever anyone. Does this man not know what a commission is? And wasn't it the same opposite when they were in opposition? When they lambasted the draft commission document that gave Trotman too much power and being too close to that commission, and now they want to run the commission basically by the ministry. He said that we have total transparency and accountability. Well, he's probably the only one who believes that, and I don't know if he himself believes that. And he says that everybody likes what we're doing. I mean, this is so laughable. And then he says that we've improved the environmental permits and put all monitoring capabilities in place. First, and I want to get to the exceedance, the illegal exceedance of production rate, but he talks about their monitoring. What monitoring is he talking about? When he and the other sabotage World Bank and study leave program that we implemented at EPA to provide the capacity for monitoring. There is no monitoring at the EPA. Not a single person at the EPA has had not even 1 hour of training or experience in oil and gas. He's saying that treating Exxon different to the local businesses in hiding. Their documents in the director's office is transparency and improving permitting. He's saying that fighting against parent company guarantee is improving permitting. He's saying that changing from international standard of re-injecting produced water to dumping billions of barrels of it in the clean ocean is improvement. He is saying that changing from strict prohibition of flaring to unlimited flaring for poultry feed to put more money in Exxon's pocket is improvement. He went so far at one time to say to defend the flaring, to fabricate that there was 14 billion cubic feet of gas that is allowed in the EIA, which is a blatant lie. He is saying that changing the rates, the production rate to illegally exceed safe limits in the EIA is improvement. My colleague MP Patterson was very charitable. in calling him misleading and deceptive, which, as we know, are parliamentary jargons for lies and ignorance. Lisa One EIA, let the public know that the fact is that the Lisa One EIA enshrines in vanilla plain language that operation, and I quote, that operation design is designed to safely operate at sustained peaks of 120,000 barrels per day. Shockingly, he is hell-bent on irresponsibly defending the illegal current production rate of 163,000 barrels per day, or an astounding 46% above that safe limit, and even admits that the safe rate is exceeded, but still defending it. His story is that the EIA says that the safe rate is 144,000 barrels per day and not the 120,000 barrels per day. Of course, that is flat out baloney. But even so, is this minister's proficiency in math failing him so much that he can't even grasp that 163,000 barrels per day rate still exceeds his fictional 144,000 barrels per day by some 14%? Unbelievably, this is happening without even changing the EIA. In other words, the EIA says one thing while he allows its legal invalidation against the law, a treacherous act that enhances the chance of an oil spill, while at the same time joins with Exxon fighting with every ounce of life against our people wanting a guarantee to cover a spill that could bankrupt Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean. This undeniably makes obvious that Exxon knew and respected the law and competent oversight of the coalition, but now find it very easy to take advantage of the current government's slackness and incompetence. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Vince, Dr. Adams. And now we will go to former leader of the Alliance for Change, Member of Parliament, Comrade Ramjatan.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and welcome to all our press corps members. I want to make an oral statement in connection with the issue of the Natural Resources Sectoral Committee not having powers to summon companies and or persons like Exxon to ask questions of them. The AFC wishes to state that a previous committee's decision cannot fetter the decision of another committee. It has been brought to the attention of the AFC that there may have been a decision by the Natural Resource Committee in the year 2024, 21st of July, at a sitting, that indeed they did not want to call in, I think, by Shanlin and or Exxon, but to rather go and visit these two companies. And that minute, it appears, is now being used as precedent for the fact that they cannot call in Exxon or Baishanlin or Rongyu or whatever the company that has to deal with natural resources in Guyana, that they should not call in these private companies for questioning. The precedent is set, and the law is in relation to these summoning of witnesses and summoning of companies already very clear in our standing orders, whereby these various sectoral committees and standing committees have the power to call in companies or companies' CEOs and so on. And it is rather strange that now, when our Natural Resources Committee, as it presently exists, that is the 2024 one, had to be bound by some decision of a previous committee, I think it was 10 years before. 2014, 21st of July 2014, sorry. So I want us to understand that Exxon too is not necessarily a private company as is. It is a licensee to go into our ocean to take oil up. And for that reason, it is like but a unit of government to the extent of being an agent of government for the extraction of a resource that belongs to the government and people of Guyana. And so now to have a situation creating the precedent that we can't call them for questioning is going to degut the standing orders and those sectoral committees of the powers that they have, first of all given by the Constitution, and secondly by the standing orders. And so the AFC is making the statement that we cannot derogate by this manner the power to summon or deny the sectoral committee the power not to summon. It is important that we understand that everybody must be accountable, everybody must be scrutinized, who have natural resources as the basis of their agreements with government, and be they companies or even persons. And it is important that that be understood. We must not be fettered by the discretion of a previous committee. And that is how the law should operate. And so if the present committee would like Exxon to be called in, Exxon ought to listen, because there is a power to penalize if you do not come. And one cannot use the precedent of a Odinga Lumumba chairmanship to come out of it in that regard. The government of Guyana always talk about accountability and transparency and scrutiny. How could they now avoid it and evade it by virtue of a certain precedent some 10 years ago? And plus, the thing is not a change or an alteration that we did in any AFC coalition government as is being alleged. I have spoken to both the Speaker and also in 2014, Mr. Raphael Trotman, and also the clerk. And we seem not to have anything in writing that changed the standing orders. So we should not gallop into a region that is going to create a very unruly horse or a slippery slope on this issue of stating emphatically and across the board, a carte blanche, as it were, that we cannot call these companies to account in the relevant parliamentary committees that we have created under the Constitution for purposes of scrutiny. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramjatan. And at this point, on behalf of the Alliance for Change, we do want to extend our condolences to former Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Mrs. Valerie Garrido Lowe, on the loss of her father recently. Our deepest sympathies. At this point in time, we do want to open up for questions. Please use the raise hand icon if you are virtual, and we can, and of course, identify yourself as is the standard. Thank you very much. I think the first question we have is Davina from Kaichor News. Davina, please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Ramjatan, do you have copies of the meeting that you just referenced? And can you remind me of the date? Also, can the AFC give its thoughts on the recent updates to our reserves?
What?
Davina, could you repeat the last part? An update to what?
Yes, I was asking for the AFC to kindly give its thoughts on the recent updates to our oil reserves. The Minister of Natural Resources recently said it moved from 11 billion barrels to 11.6 billion barrels. So can the AFC give its thoughts on that, please?
On your first question, we have a minute of a meeting of the Natural Resources Sectoral Committee held on 21st of July 2014, which purports to set this damning precedent. Well, I have read the entirety, and I will share it with the newspapers, that it could not have meant that Exxon, or at the time by Shanlin, cannot be called and summoned to answer questions. It is very clear. And so I do have that minute. We will share it. I'll ask Kathy to send it to all the press people. In relation to the...
If you don't mind, just before we go on to the other question, there is evidence of Exxon appearing before
That's right.
the Natural Resources Sectoral Committee in 2018
Yeah.
after that decision. So how can then there be a precedent set in that direction that no company, Exxon included, cannot be summoned before the committee?
Well, that is also a rationale as to why the precedent of 2014 should not be the law. Because there was, under the ministership of Raphael Trotman, where Exxon was invited and it was summoned, as it were, and Exxon came. And that was in 2018, 4 years after this alleged precedent was set. And it is all because the PPP government seemed not to want to ask questions of Exxon and other natural resources companies, if I may use that term, and to deny the people of Guyana scrutiny. So you are right. Indeed, we, after a 4-year period, whilst in government, did ask Exxon to come, and Exxon came. And I understand that the PPP, via Perlene Sukai, had questioned very seriously, I think Mr. Ron Henson then.
Yes, Rod.
Rod Henson, sorry. And so why can't we now, at this stage, have questions asked of people like Mr. Routledge? In relation to the other question of the amount of our reserves, look, in view of all that is happening right now, I distrust whatever the government is saying as what our reserves are. Mm-hmm. I believe that it is lots more than 11.6 billion, and the government simply do not want us, by virtue of this precedent that they are talking about 2014, to call Exxon for us to question Exxon how much more oil they have discovered, because there were obviously about 16 discoveries or after that big one in Payara and in the Starbuck block. So the very first one, that is. So it is important that we be allowed to get these facts from the horse's mouth, rather than, through messages being sent that it is not more than 11.6 and so on. And we can question them on the various finds that they made since then. And obviously, these are major finds too. So it is obviously far higher than 11.6.
Let me add, and of course, I don't think it needs a whole lot of convincing of anybody that of the non-transparency of this government, and you cannot trust anything that they tell you. Calculating reserves, and we've said this over and over, does not take years. How come when they were doing reserves for the first year or two, as soon as there was a discovery, we were getting an updated reserve calculation, which is how it normally happens. It doesn't take a whole lot to do it. They've taken 2 years. It's about 2 years now since they gave us the last update. In the meantime, they've had how many additional
Finds.
Discoveries. Yeah. Then you hear Hess. Hess is given a different number, even though they're not talking about 18 billion or 15 billion. Hess, they're saying it's only increased by what, 600 million? And Hess is saying it's 700, I think they made some statement, it's 700 something million. Now, if the Vikram Bharat says that in his statement yesterday, I think it's yesterday, I can't remember, yesterday, the day before. He says that they're fully transparent. Well, we're going to challenge him now. Show us the quarterly reports that Exxon sends to them. On top of that, show us the raw data. You know, we have people who can calculate the results. It's an easy, very easy calculation as long as you have the data in front of you. It doesn't take you 2 years. Let them want to be fully transparent. We are challenging them to give us the raw data. As a matter of fact, the data does not belong to Exxon. The data belongs to the government of Guyana. So if you're claiming that you're fully transparent, show us the quarterly reports. There shouldn't be anything that is proprietary, and if there's proprietary, you can block it out. Show us the proprietary, the quarterly reports, and show us the raw data, and let us see for ourselves. So that's the challenge. Prove it. If that's what change. You know, they come up with all kinds of excuses. When the question was first asked, well, they're busy doing other things, which was it was a blatant lie. There's no company who's going to go do discovery and they're not going to do their reserve estimates, because that's what they do, use as leverage to get investors. So as soon as you make a discovery, you put it into your reserve. So this whole nonsense about them, when they hear the vice president come and say, well, they're too busy doing marketing stuff. Well, there's a different division for marketing, and the production and the exploration end. So as soon as you get a discovery and if you find something there, it's big news. You add it to your bank of reserves so that you can use it to go get investment and to use as leverage for funding. So, you know, it's untrustworthy. So again, our challenge is for them to show us the quarterly reports and for them to show us the raw data.
Thank you, Dr. Vince Adams. And as a member of the Natural Resources Committee, I do want to add a comment. Firstly, I want to remind us that under the APNU AFC administration, we actually requested of Exxon that they invite, at the time the opposition, the PPP was in opposition, and we suggested that Exxon invite the PPP and have discussions with the PPP to share information on developments in the industry. And we feel even now there is a certain responsibility whereby information on this industry should be shared with the opposition, who is a major stakeholder. The other thing I'd like to add too is that it's not just Exxon that hasn't attended and responded positively to requests to meet with the Parliamentary Committee, but the EPA also. The EPA has received invitations through the Parliament, through the committee, the Natural Resource Committee, to come and update the committee on developments and answer questions. And it has been well over a year and they still have not found the time to attend. And it really is the principle. It's not so much the agency specifically, but any agency, any company, if required or if requested to come to the parliamentary committee, to any parliamentary committee, should feel that they have the responsibility to attend and thereby inform the people of this country what is important and what the issues are and the pertinent information. With that,
Let me quickly add in, Kathy.
Sure.
Again, getting back to this transparency and sharing of information. Last week at the press conference, somebody asked about the field development plan. The field development plan is the comprehensive document that tells you how this project will be executed. It's a very simple document to read. The vice president gets up there and insults the media and insults all Guyanese that we're not capable of understanding the document. Well, he might be, he need to not judge other people by his standard. If it's complicated for him, it doesn't mean that it's complicated for everybody, because it's a very simple document. It's a document, besides the quarterly report, it's a document that should be put for in the public environment, so that anybody who wants to see how these projects are being operated, there's nothing proprietary there. It tells you about the production rate, the waste that they're generating. If they're claiming this high road to be transparent, we're challenging them to add to the list also, that they release those field development plans so that the public can see for themselves how these projects are being executed, because these projects does not belong to Jabio and the PPP. This project belongs to the people of Guyana, and they ought to know how these projects are being run.
I just want to, before we go to the other person, look, there must be a motive as to why they want to hide the reserves. And we go back to an original argument that when we had signed that agreement, there was only 3 billion barrels found or discovered. What we have seen, it has risen to 11 and lots more. But that also means that there are changed circumstances, altered circumstances, which under the production sharing agreement, there could also be renegotiations because of this vast amount from $3 billion when we signed. The government does not want to renegotiate, and so it would like to hide the figures at 11 or thereabouts, when it should be far more than that, because changed circumstances, by popular, make the argument that we ought to get a better deal under renegotiated terms.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a technical suspicion that I want to bring to folks' attention. And if you read the contract, and this might be tied to something else, because remember the issue that was raised about the money being withdrawn for decommissioning that goes into Exxon bank account. The amount that is being withdrawn, it's calculated, and here's how that amount is being calculated. It's being calculated by dividing the budget, the approved budget, the budget that is approved by the minister for decommissioning. You divide that number by the reserves.
Yes.
Okay? And then you multiply it by the amount that have been produced. So as long as that reserves you divide them by the reserves, the bigger that reserves, the less you're going to withdraw. So is there a suspicion that because if you go right now they're dividing by 11 billion barrels. If you divide, instead of 11 billion barrels, you divide it by, let's say, 18 billion barrels, what is that? You're reducing this thing by almost half as to what they can withdraw for the decommissioning. So is there a suspicion that is tied to it? There has to be something. And on top of that, again, going back to transparency, why, and this is a pattern, it's very troubling. They don't want to go to Parliament. They are hiding Exxon's files is not with the other local developers' files at the EPA. We developed a big state-of-the-art filing room that wasn't there before we took office, and they dismantled that, and now they're hiding Exxon's files in the executive director's office, even hiding it from the employees. What is there to hide? So there's lots of questions that should be asked here, and a pattern that is very troubling that are raising all of these questions.
Thank you very much. And can I ask if there are any other questions from any of the reporters online or here with us at our offices?
Yes, Kathy.
Please go ahead, Adam.
I have a question for Sister Beverly. Now, she was talking about GCOM and its lack of readiness. I saw a report where the Attorney General said that biometrics is not going to happen. Instead, GCOM should set about appointing what he called, oh boy, what kind of stuff? Anyhow,
Honest staff.
is it honest? Yeah. Is it in the power of the Attorney General to determine whether there will be biometrics or not?
Adam, you probably should have asked if it's within the power of Mr. Guyano to make that decision, because that is a decision that we would hope would come as a recommendation from the Guyana Elections Commission to the National Assembly. The Attorney General is one vote within that National Assembly. But greater than the National Assembly is the electorate. They are saying that you now have over 700,000 persons on the list of electors. So using their figure, that decision should be made by the representatives of 700,000 people. I don't know how many the Honorable Attorney General representing, but we're hoping that GCOM, because the responsibility rests with GCOM to conduct free, fair, credible elections. And to do that, they've noted the weaknesses in the system from 2020. They should be making recommendations. Here is what needs to get done. At present, there is nothing stopping the collection of biometrics. Yes, there may be law on the use of biometrics on polling day, but that can be corrected by amendment to legislation. Right now, the National Assembly is in recess until the 10th of October. And we have a very capable person in the person of Justice Claudette Singh chairing the commission. We respect her capacity, her knowledge, and we're very confident that the chairperson can draft that recommendation that even the Attorney General can bring to the House. But it is definitely not within the purview of any one person to say what should or can be done. Thank you, Adam. I don't know if Kemraj want to add.
No, well, look, it goes back to the deceit. It goes back to lack of wanting to do the right thing by the Attorney General. Look, we all know what happened with the last elections when indeed Mr. Vincent Adams and others asked the police force as to names of people that voted, Vincent Alexander, sorry. And we got back that these are people who are not in Guyana that are ticked off as voting. Biometrics is one such method that is recommended to cure that kind of impersonation. When you do not want to have impersonations, then you would want the biometrics legislation in place. But they don't want it. So it is bespeaking of what the PPP government and its Attorney General is up to at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Camarade Ramjatan. Members of the media, I don't see any other raised hands. Are there any other questions? Okay, no other questions. I do want to thank you all, those of you online, those of you here with us. Thank you for joining us at the AFC's weekly press conference. Please be safe over this weekend, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.